Is a mat and a foam roller as well as a trigger point ball. I'm using a tennis ball because those have a little bit more give, so it can be a little bit less tension, stress on the muscle. If you don't have a trigger point ball with you or anything that you can use for that, that's completely fine. We're only using that for one movement. The rest we will be going through foam rolling for our release techniques, as well as some static stretching and then some dynamic movement or activation, all of which are very important for mobility as a whole. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we are going to start out with our foam roller. Whenever we do mobility, I always like to start out with our release techniques, which basically just means releasing tension that can be chronic in certain muscles. And that's going to be different for everybody, but I know many people get that tight lower back, and that's exactly where we're going to start out with today. So what we're going to do is place that foam roller behind your back, tuck it in right behind your tailbone, and then from there, pick your body weight up, and then we're going to slowly foam roll from that low back all the way until you get below your shoulder blades. And you can go nice and slow with this. There's a couple different ways you can do this. Whenever I do this, a lot of times I can go center of the back foam rolling, just because my spine or the boning processes on it don't stick out. So this isn't putting any pressure on the bone. But for you, if you're feeling any pressure, any tension on the actual spine, then what you'll want to do is just slightly shift, slightly rotate your body weight to one side. That way you are working one side of your spine up and down your torso. And then after doing that for a little bit, you'll switch and then do the other side. That's going to get those erector spinae muscles. Those can become very chronically tight. And so we want to make sure that those can relax. Foam rolling is a great technique to do so. All right, great job. Okay, next up, we are going to move onto our mid-back, our thoracic spine. And so what we're going to do, I will just have you start out with that foam roller right below your shoulder blades. And then from there, you want to either extend your arms over your chest, or you can give yourself a big hug. And what that's going to do, that's going to spread those shoulder blades apart, and it's going to allow you to foam roll that mid back without running into those scapula. Now, I will say for most people, me included, some of those smaller muscles in your back that are in between your scapula, those can be pretty sensitive. It does not take much pressure to really feel it. So just be careful. You can rest your body weight on the ground and then just slide up and down on the mat, if that will help. Another thing that you can do to spread those apart is you can almost do a crunch formation. And then anytime we're foam rolling, you can really just find a sensitive spot or a very tight spot and then hang out there. You don't have to actively roll the entire time that you're doing the movement. If you find a specifically tight spot, then you just want to hold that pressure there and then whenever we release, that muscle will relax a little bit more. All right, let's go ahead and release. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this foam roller to the side, and now I'm going to grab my trigger point ball. Ugh. And for this instance, I'm using a tennis ball. You can use a large bouncy ball or anything that's about this size. And the amount of give to it is going to determine how much pressure is being put on certain areas. So if you've got really sensitive or tight spots that you're working on, I like to use something with a little bit more give, like a tennis ball. So next up, we are going to do a trigger point specifically on the rhomboids or some of those small muscles that are found right next to, in between the shoulder blades. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start out by finding this muscle. So if you reach back, if you can feel your shoulder blade, or if you can just pull your shoulder back and feel it against the wall, that'll work too. But you want to find that muscle directly located next to that shoulder blade, in closer to your midline. It's going to be right outside of your spine as well, in between that shoulder blade and your spine. For most people, this is going to be that really sensitive spot that you can really feel, like whenever you're getting, if you ever go and get massages done, that's that spot that they're really going to work on for that longer period of time that you might feel very tight. So you're going to find that point, replacing that ball on the point, and then you can do one of two things. You can either do this against a wall, or you can do it against the floor like me. And so then we are laying down on the floor. Going to make sure that that ball is in place. Shift my body to get it just right. And I'm going to pull that arm across my body to really expose that muscle. And then from there, you can do small rotations of your shoulder to roll that ball out. But a lot of times whenever I do this, I just relax here. I put a good amount of pressure on that muscle where I can feel that pressure, but it's not really painful yet. We never want to cross that pain threshold. And then we're just holding this for a few seconds. And then we're going to switch. So let's go ahead and switch. We'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, find that muscle inside the shoulder blade, outside the spine. You can cross that arm over your body. Relax, put some pressure on it. And everything we're doing today is working on some of that spinal rotation, some of that spinal mobility. So that's why we've been working our way up and down the back so far. This is a great way to prep for the rest of our mobility exercises that we're going to do, because it releases any tension, any limiting factors to any of the other stretches or activation exercises that we're going to do coming up. All right. Speaking of which, we are going to put our ball to the side. We are done with that. And we're going to move into a few stretches. So the first thing that we're going to do is a cat-cow stretch. And so if you will go into a tabletop position, that's where our hands are directly loaded below our shoulders. And then from here, we are just going to raise that chin up, put a nice dip in the back. And then we're driving our hands into the floor, putting a rounding in our mid-back as we tuck the chin. And you can do this as a nice, slow, controlled movement. We're not holding any position for an extended period of time. We're just holding for 1 to 2 seconds and then nice, slow control right back into that alternating movement. Great job. Whenever I do this, I'll go into my cat position on the exhale. And then I'll inhale as I raise my chin. All right. Fantastic job. Okay, we are going to stay in our kneeling position, and we're actually going to start out in a tabletop position again. Now we're going to work in a little bit of rotation. So we're going to do a thread the needle movement. So we're starting out in our tabletop, and then what we're going to do, we're going to take our right arm, keep that left hand on the floor, take our right arm, we're going to thread it in between our body and our arm, rotate that spine. A lot of times when I do this, I will go palm up on my hand, and I'll even get that whole arm pressed down against the ground. Sometimes you'll even feel a stretch in that mid back whenever you do this too. From here, we're going to take that arm, rotate, and you're going to rotate until your fingers are pointed towards the sky. Nice, slow, controlled movement. We're doing nice, slow repetitions. Great job. One more. Fantastic. All right, let's do the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to take my left arm, thread it, rotate up. Good job. Good, one more. Fantastic. Okay, we're keeping with our trend of some spinal rotations. Next up, we're going to do a seated spinal twist. So you can start out with those legs spread apart in this wide stance. Start out sitting up straight, and then we're going to rotate to one side, rotate to the other. Now, sometimes you might see people that do this where they can lay their whole torso against the ground. They can touch their head to the floor. You do not have to try to do that. You just want to go as far as you comfortably can. So as we start, we'll go to the right, twist that spine, and then lower yourself as far to the floor as you can without picking up your hips. Come back up, rotate, lower yourself down as far as you can without picking up your hips. And repeat. And this is slow and controlled. Don't be afraid to use those arms to help assist you in lowering yourself down, picking yourself up. That way, you're not trying to move while that lower back might be in a compromised position. Great job. Okay. So next up, we're going to add a little bit of activation. A lot of the things that we've been doing now are thought of as more dynamic stretching. But next up, we're going to go to some activation. which is very important because you want to be able to actively contract those muscles and move yourself over an increased range of motion for mobility. So for that, I'm going to back up to my wall here. You can find anything that you can place your body weight against, whether it be a wall or a desk or anything like that. But what we're going to do is start out in a kneeling position against the wall. And I'm going to go back leg closest to the wall. And now from here, I'm taking my arms extended out in front of me. And then I'm going to rotate while keeping your hip in contact with the wall. You're rotating out until hopefully you can touch that opposite arm to the wall. And then right back. We're going nice, slow, and controlled. And if you can't get all the way, that's completely fine. You want to keep that core tight and use your core to stabilize your hips in place as you're pulling that arm as far over as you can. Just get to the end of your range of motion as far as you can go comfortably and then return. All right, let's do the other side now. Right. Arms out in front. And rotate. I want to keep that hip pressed against the wall. If you feel your hip leave the wall, then readjust and don't go so far. Also want to keep that shoulder in contact with the wall. Great job. Let's go one more. Fantastic. All right. And then last stretch, and this is just a fantastic transition that I like to do through a lot of classes as we transition out of our class and back into our day. We're just going to go into a child's pose. So you can start out in kneeling position, drive those hands into the floor, shift your hips back, extend those arms out in front of you, and then just use this as a second to relax. Feel the stretch. You might feel some in your lats, in your back, in your legs. Feel the stretch. Take a few deep breaths. And whenever you're ready, you can transition back out of that child's pose. And that is the end of today's mobility session. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you have any questions about any of the movements that we did or need a little bit of extra help with them, feel free to reach out to me about that. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you.